when people get together and there's no camera on and there's no posture that we have to be these robots at work, they become a lot more open to sharing their challenges, their real challenges.
Welcome to Not Another CEO podcast. I'm your host, David Politis. Every week, we talk to inspiring leaders and get the true stories, the ups and downs, the lessons learned, and come away with actionable advice for our own journeys. Today's guests are a remarkable husband-wife duo. They've built a company trusted by thousands of go-to-market teams around the world to drive more revenue and better customer experiences. Nicolas and Alina Vandenberghe are the co-founders and co-CEOs of Chili Piper. Nicolas is a 5-time founder who has an impressive and diverse background. His experience spans every stage of a company, and he's worked in everything from telecom, e-commerce, venture capital, and of course, SaaS. Alina comes from a deep product background and has spent her career building and managing technology products used by millions of people around the world. She is also passionate about empowering the next generation of women in technology. They started Chili Piper in 2016, bootstrapped it past $2 million in ARR before raising external funding. Now they've gone on to raise over $50 million while scaling into a global business with more than 140 employees across 32 countries. Today, their platform helps B2B revenue teams improve conversions throughout the entire funnel, and they serve customers like Verizon, Monday, Gong, and Intuit. Please welcome Nicolas and Alina Vandenberghe.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm excited to do this. All right, first question. We're going to go to Alina first. This is going to be a hard interview for me because I don't usually interview two people, but we're going to try. First question. What is the one thing you've done at Chili Piper, big or small, that's had the biggest impact and you do again if you're CEO of another company in the future?
Because I was a first-time founder, something that instilled discipline in me was getting our first customers to pay before we had anything built. Because you have these ideas in your mind and you get people to say, yeah, that's amazing, I would buy it. But if they don't sign the Panda Dog, the contract to show that they're real about getting on board with you, then I think it's a lot harder to succeed.
When you do that, those early customers, how did you get those? How did you even find those customers? Were they people you knew already or?
We would go to a lot of events in person in New York and in Los Angeles, and it was mostly revenue teams that would go, and we tried to figure out what was on their mind, what was their current problem, what they were dealing with, and eventually we found someone that was struggling with round-robin distribution from sales teams to the onboarding team. And they were ready to pay $20K to get us started ahead of time. And then we found 5 more. That was all. They were all ready to get us started also with this distribution of leads, and the rest is history.
With no product, just to be clear.
No product.
No. So this is, I think, a big topic. For me, when I started Better Cloud, we did it all free product. We gave it away. We did all of that. And then we went to convert. We had 10,000 customers, 20,000 customers, and only like 1,000 converted or less than that. Very low ASP. But now when I talk to founders, especially founders who have not been successful, every person says, I wish I actually got them to pay up front because I got almost false positives of whether they were actually interested. What was that conversation like with them when you said, hey, pay me $20,000 for a product that doesn't exist? They all said, okay, here, I signed it.
In our case, it was a bit different because they were getting ready to build it internally themselves, and it would have costed them more. So it was a real problem that they were getting ready to solve one way or another, whether it was an agency build or it was an internal build, they were ready to solve for it. So the fact that we would come in and would build it for cheaper, it was like a good alternative for them. They put some milestones in the contract to make sure that we would deliver, and we delivered.
How many of those first customers did you have? Let's say today people would say design partners. How many of those?
So we had the first contract from this company in San Francisco, and we had 4 others that said yes. We didn't sign the contract yet with them, but as we were building and we were showing the first milestone for the company in San Francisco, we were showing to these other 4 companies that were ready to also buy.
And how much time did you spend with those customers as you were building? Like, did you show them every step of the way?
We had the product ready in 3 months, and I would keep them updated. This is what we've done, this is what we have ready. And the reason why I would keep them updated is because I was curious if I'm doing something that might not accommodate their needs. So I would ask, this is what I'm thinking about it. Would that work also for you? It was like from a curiosity standpoint of view, not from a sales standpoint of view. It was, I wanted to make sure that we're building something that would work for them also.
Yeah, there was quite a lot of back and forth actually. We showed some ideas, and then we had better ideas to do it, and went back to them, and in that process, that's it. We did weekly check-in with them.
Are those customers still customers
Yes.
today? Wow.
It's ironic actually, because the second customer was Greenhouse, and I have a call with them immediately after this call. Renewal number, I don't know, 9.
I had Daniel on the podcast.
Oh, did
actually.
you?
Yeah. As you started to bring on more customers, did you take a similar kind of approach in terms of like working with them and showing them the wireframes and kind of doing that as you were building?
Very much so. In the early days, I was also the customer success on board. I was onboarding them, and I would ask a million questions. But how did you think about that? But what about this other flow? Did you optimize for that? So it was, I was asking more questions of them about the future process than it was needed in an onboarding call. But that's how I got all my intelligence early on to make sure that we build the right things. Yeah.
One of the things I find with a lot of the founders that I talk to, early stage founders, I tell them that first set of customers that you're talking to this way, they are having an experience with a software company that not that many people actually get to have. I mean, how many software companies ask you, what should I build? How should I build it? And I always tell people, if you do it the right way, those people will be your references at every financing round, at everything you ever, those people are kind of like your champions because they feel like they were there, and
they have an ownership into your
they have
product.
ownership of the thing. And especially if you do it, I mean, how long you guys have been now? Almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years. So those people now look back, they're probably VPs or C-level. I don't, and now they're like, I was there when Chili Piper was just them, And so I tell early stage founders, like, spend the time with those customers because they could be your customers for life, but more than that, they're like, they feel ownership.
Advocates, they remain advocates.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. How about you, Nicolas? What's the one thing you would do?
So when we started, as you mentioned, Alina is Romanian, I'm French. We were in New York. We hired a guy in Bucharest, another guy in Montenegro, another guy in Kyiv in Ukraine. And the idea was that we found these smart guys and we decided to work with them. And we've grown that way, hiring people anywhere in the world. So the way we did it is that we said, we're not going to restrict ourselves to New York or San Francisco. We're going to hire everywhere in the world. And that's how we've grown. And for sure, if I do another company, I'll do the same. I think it's the best way to get the best talent, and we're finding that if you put the right processes in place, you can work remotely very effectively. At least that's my assessment. So I think that it gives us secret powers.
Were your previous companies remote or in person?
In the middle. So my first company, I had some engineers in France, and I was in San Francisco. So, but there was an office that we had there. So I started getting used to working remotely. Then we did another one where they were in Romania, and then some of them were in a different town. So I started gradually getting comfortable with the idea of working remotely. But Chili Pepper is the only one where we were like completely remote. I was saying the largest office of Chili Pepper is Brooklyn, where the two of us are. So there's no place in the world where two Pipers are together.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you do it in the beginning for cost, or did you do it for the talent?
For the talent. Obviously, when we started 2016, there was a cost difference. With COVID, that has shrunk, right? The salaries for engineers in other countries have gone way up. But it's unique for us to be able to find talent. We just opened 2 engineering jobs in the last 2 months that were filled up in no time, right? guy in Germany, one guy, I don't even remember the other one in Poland, I think. We have the world is our target. It's amazing.
One question on that, very tactical question, but when I think about recruiting, I think, I have a recruiter and I tell them, hey, go after salespeople in New York City who are going to come to the office every day, just for example, and you can get super targeted. In this case, you just say, get me a developer. I mean,
No.
you know what I'm saying?
No, it's the same. It's targeted, except that you don't have a geographic constraint, right? To say, get me a Scala developer with 5 years of experience who has done real-time, sockets, and you target that, except that you post and you go all over the world.
Wow. So is comp basically, this is the comp, and if we hire the person in Poland or we hire the person...
That is a super interesting question, because when we started...
This was, for me, I always had in person, and then in COVID, we had people all over, and I didn't know what to do.
You didn't know what to do.
Comp.
And so we went through that stage of not knowing what to do. Because when we started, with Alina and I, we just find somebody and say, how about we give you X, right? X is good, it's good, it's good. And you, why is good, why is good? And then we, of course, ended up with a bit of a mess, right? So and we thought long and hard about how to go about it. There was some, in the Yaya years, so 21, when there was a lot of money, there were a lot of suggestion to pay everybody the same. Like whether, if you're a Scala engineer, you're paid the same wherever you are. And we had people, I remember one guy in Egypt who say, I want $100,000. Say, in Egypt? I say, well, because that's what you pay your engineers. Say, yes, but not in Egypt. And so then we realized that would actually be completely unfair to do in New York, for example, right? Because they pay the same, except that their rent is about 10 times the others. So we decided on a very strict policy where we pay market rates.
Per market.
Per job. We have a super long grid. Our head of people did that. A super long grid with every job, every region. We categorize in 6 regions. So it's not per country, but it's in 6 regions in the world. And every region has its price. And we buy data and we collaborate with other companies to make sure we have the price accurate. We update the price every year. And people come to us and say, why am I paid less than such and such? And say, this is why. This is your market. This is where you are. We've had to do something that was actually very challenging. We had some US people who got hired in the US and then moved to another country. So in this case, Portugal. And, so if you travel, it's cool. But if you're in Portugal for good, then there's a problem that the Portuguese pay way less. So we went to them and said, listen, if you're long-term here, you're going to be paid on local market.
Wow.
And we did it. So now we really have a science and it's working.
Wow. Alina, how do you feel about the remote first? Like, would you do that also again?
I'm a little bit more torn on the subject. At the beginning, when we decided, I thought it was the best decision. I love traveling. And the freedom that it gives me to do the work wherever I am, and the freedom that it gives our employees to travel and to be with their babies and to be close to their families. I really love that part. I am observing that these days, and maybe it's like a 10-year fatigue of Zoom, I feel a lot more joyful when I work with people in person. And I miss that. So what we're trying right now to figure out how to solve for certain people that have more joy and they feel more productive when they're around others. So we're getting people together more often than normal.
Is there some kind of way to get everyone to get, do you do that where you take the whole company and bring them together?
What we normally do is we have a 1-year event that's still be crazy where we bring everybody together.
Once a year.
And
so everyone from all over the world.
From all over the world. And you imagine that it's very different cultures, right? You can have like Russian with Ukrainians, and you get like Algerians with Israelis. It's beautiful. It is beautiful because we think that we are different, but really we're all the same. And I love those yearly events. And now we're trying to do something where we bring pods, like teams together, separate from that as well. I mean, we do a lot of training when we're together. So I hope that brings back that sparkle and that joy.
So every year.
And every year at the end of the event, it's usually 3 or 4 days trip. We all get together and sing the song Imagine from John Lennon. So imagine there's no border.
You have videos of all.
Yeah, we'll send them to you.
That must be
Yeah, they're
amazing.
beautiful.
That must be amazing. We used to do something. We would get everyone together. We didn't do it every year, but when we get everyone together, we would call everyone up from like the first year of the company, 2011, take a photo, and then call the people from 2012, take a photo around the 2011, and we just kept doing it. So you have this photo of
the growth of the company.
growing,
That's very cool.
and it was really cool. Someone suggested to me, and we did it, and then we did it every time we were together. And it was, by the last time it took an hour just to organize, the thing. But I mean, those. So I want to talk again. I want to talk about these. Bringing everyone together is extremely expensive. I mean, it doesn't matter for 100 something people. It's $1 million. Let's call it, maybe less, whatever. But it's something a lot. Is that something worth? When you look at that, obviously you think it's worth it. But I mean, how do you manage that? Because that's a huge number, whatever the number is.
We don't have office costs, so the offset of having an office for a company like ours, the cost of the trip is actually a lot less than if we had office. So it's easy to justify from a financial perspective. But it also has some brand component to it. So it's not only like a cost to it. We also do crazy things. And it creates a certain, it has certain ripple effects in the ecosystem also.
I got to tell you what happened to us in 23. So in 2022, we did a completely extravagant company trip. We actually flew everybody to Casablanca in Morocco. We chartered 2 Boeings just for us. And we flew everybody to the desert of Morocco where we had a village built for us. And then a giant scene with the party, and it was like nuts, right? Money was easy, and it was crazy. Unfortunately, shortly after that, the market tanked, and we had to do the only time we did layoffs. So we had to let go some people. So we felt, okay, we're not going to do a trip this year, 2023. It felt right. We've learned our lessons. This was extravagant, and so we start the year with the understanding that there's no company trip this year. We're saving money, we're being cautious. And by October, one day, Alina and I looked at each other. It was crazy. And I say, we need a trip. Yes, we need a trip. We felt it. We felt that there was a lack of cohesion. And so here we are, we're in October, and we say, where do we go? And you all say Iceland, and say Iceland, it's super cold, it's winter. But we had no time. It was the one place we could go to. And so we flew to Iceland in November. Of 2023, like improvised, and people loved it, and we loved it. It was such a great, especially when you don't have expectation. You think there's going to be no trip, and all of a sudden you find all of us together. Wow, it was amazing.
I want to talk about, you being co-CEOs. Forget being married, just the co-CEO part. It to me is kind of complicated. How do you divide the responsibilities between you?
I feel extremely fortunate that I get to work with Nicolas, because I no longer feel guilty about not being with my family, So we also have the luxury of splitting the responsibilities depending on where we are in our growth and where we are in our strength. And when we started, the only way for him to convince me to come on board to start a company with him. So he's a serial entrepreneur. For me, it's the first time around. And I was convinced that I wanted to climb the corporate ladder of America and just become like the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. So it took him a while to bring me on board. And I said, fine, I come, but only if I'm the CEO. And that's how we started. I was the CEO. I was in charge of product and customer support and some other stuff. And he was our GTM president and all the GTM functions under him. And now, to make things very complicated, we swapped.
How do you, for me, the part that always makes me concerned about the co-CEO structure is, how does the team know who's making the decisions? Do they have to go to both of you? How do you do that?
So we have responsibilities, right? When she started, the story she told is true, that I begged her to come and start a company with me and say, you'll be CEO. One of the reasons is because she was super successful building products. So she did the iPad app. When Apple launched the iPad, she was at Thomson Reuters, and Steve Jobs chose this app to show on stage, the iPad, right? So she was really doing brilliant things. And I say, look, when you have this talent, you do it for yourself. Like, you build amazing products for you that you get the benefits for it. So it was clear that she was going to be head of product and that she was going to manage also the engineers. And me, I love sales, so I would do sales. We grew that way. So for people in product, it was clear that I would go to Alina, and people in sales, they come to me. So there was no question. We may occasionally, our people team say, hey, this policy, but they ask both of us, and it's not really an issue. Now, in a funny way, as we grew bigger, and I realized that marketing is more and more personal, but building community, being present, I thought something wrong where the face of the company is this gray-haired man, like white male, gray hair, when we have this beautiful woman sitting in the back doing product. So light bulb, I say, we swap. You're going to be the face of the company. Trust me, people will like it a lot better. And I had a hard time convincing her at the beginning. She said, no, that's not my thing. But now she's taking on full strength, and so we swapped. I
How long ago was that?
That was 18 months?
Years ago. 2 years. I do want to have an asterisk. You're very beautiful too.
I mean, one of the things I see, to your point, I mean, Alina, you're very, on LinkedIn, you're pretty open.
I'm very active, yeah.
You're very active. And I, at least for me, when I read it, I appreciate it because it's very transparent. It feels like it's very real and authentic. Is that natural to you? Was that like something you're just like, oh, I want to tell the world my, like how I operate and my thoughts? And
No, it was terrifying. So when he said, it's a good idea to take the acting CMO role for various reasons, I think you'd be great at it. I was shaking. The thought of being public was completely terrifying because not only you get picked apart from a large audience and everybody has an opinion about the words that you're using. Every word triggers someone. It's terrifying to be out in the open with the flaws that you have. And in addition, I did not enjoy at all the spotlight. I did not want any spotlight for myself. Quite the opposite. I would remember like a year before that, I would tell my team, never have me speak to journalists, never have me on podcasts,
Really?
never put me on stage. I don't want to have anything to do with it. I do not enjoy the spotlight. That's not for me.
Wow. But now I feel like a lot of the stuff that you share
I love it.
is like
I love it.
Amazing.
Yeah,
And people, other founders love that. Like let me I want to come back to that in a second, but I want to still stay on the decision making. One of the things you told me when we were doing our prep call was just how you document decisions. Can you talk about that? Because that to me I love that actually. I think tactically this is something people can take from this episode.
Yeah. So we stumbled upon it. Let me tell you a story. So we were having meetings, and I read about Jeff Bezos with his 6-page memo in the meeting. So instead of having PowerPoint, somebody has to write. So we say we're going to do that because it sounds like a good idea. And obviously, it seems to work for Bezos, right? So we started writing this doc, and because we were remote, the doc was online, right, in Google Doc. And so we said, look, if it's ready before the meeting, share it before the meeting. Oh, let's share it before the meeting, yeah. And people would comment on Google Doc because you can comment.
Right.
And by the time we'd get into the meeting, everything was there. Like people had already commented, give their ideas and all that. So that's how we stumbled upon that concept of a decision memo that's actually online and asynchronous. So because in the meeting there was nothing left to decide, it was clear what had come out, right? So we made it a process. We put a template. We said, okay, problem, data, evidencing the problem, consensus caller, and I'll talk in a minute what we mean by consensus caller, and then options, and then recommendations, and then decision. And every decision memo is follows this format. We stumbled upon something very critical in the process. The Internet Task Force had the problem of decision making where there's no
central
authority. Yeah. Exactly. So, and somebody came up with this idea of a rough consensus. It means that you don't vote. It's not an election. It's not authority. It's those who have more knowledge of the matter make a decision and try to build a consensus, but accept that some people may disagree as long as the concerns have been addressed. It's called a rough consensus. And so we go with that. We go with the decision memo. We say is a rough consensus emerging? And sometimes it happens that that is diverging. Like there are 5 options, and there's as many people as different views on that. And in that case, we say, okay, it means that we haven't analyzed the problem enough. So we go back. Sometimes we just shut down the decision memo, split it in parts, do another one, and go back and.
So you use this decision memo for
everything.
Everything.
A product.
Even in a small decision, people say, I think we should, like right now, we're planning our next event, right? So we did our first annual conference. We want to do it next year. The location of the decision is which location we could go.
That micro, like the the location.
Even smaller, like drop down in the product.
That's exactly right. What we're going to call, we're launching an AI product. And we were going to call it, I can tell you, we're going to call it Insight. And the product manager said, I don't like Insight. But 2 of us did. And she said, I'm going to write a decision memo. And she did. It happened yesterday, the decision memo is this morning. She put the other options. Wow. People contributed, and we're going to change the name of it.
And you don't need to have a meeting for this.
No,
that's right.
No meetings. We barely have any meetings.
This beautiful thing, we have an automation where when the decision memo is we put it in a Google Sheet, it posts to Slack as a new decision memo. And every decision memo, well, we have 2 types. Most of them are company-wide, so it posts into the Slack channel. Everybody can see, decide, put their view. And some of them, we call them a micro decision memo. It's not that we hide anything. It's just that
it's not important enough.
That's right. We don't want the engineers think on what tool they're going to use. We don't need the whole company. So it posts, people contribute. Sometimes it's very important. I ask at the company meeting. We have a call every week. I ask, say, that's a very important decision memo. Pricing is a great one. Decision memo for pricing. So there's a lot of research ahead of time. But when the research is done, we put it in a decision
memo. And literally
memo.
The whole company goes there.
The entire company goes and
comments and And is there a person's name there as the owner?
The consensus caller. If there's no consensus,
that's the person.
The person has to decide whether they can push the decision or not. It's fascinating because you assume that there's too much red tape to write all these micro decisions, etc. But it's super fast. Like I can write a decision memo myself in like 15 minutes because I got experience with it, and most people got experience with it. So we're fast at it, and everything historically you understand like why did we decide on this thing?
The history.
Yeah, because when we say why did we do that, say well let's go back to the decision memo. And it's amazing. Were there a decision memo on that? And most of the time there was. And so we find it. We say, this is why we did it. And then say, is it still applicable? What has changed that will make us change our mind?
I want to have an asterisk that it's amazing. So I feel a lot less stressful as a CEO because I'm not part of, it's an organism that evolves, and I'm not part of every decision like normally a CEO would be in these kind of things. But there are there's still an imperfect system in that it's hard to contribute as a person to so many things because you're going to see so many decisions around you, and then you realize that there was a decision that was made that you weren't part of it. So that happens. And sometimes we have very strong voices pro and con a specific subject. And for the consensus caller, it's very important to make sure that all the voices are heard, that everybody understands what's weighing for different people. And sometimes there's an emotional resonance to it that's not visible in the documents. And that's when I think we can still improve on the physical presence of debating and making sure that everybody's heard around their emotional resonance around the decision.
There's another aspect to the decision memo. It's a funny aspect is that Alina and I are both rebel. Like I was expelled from school and that kind of shit. And so I didn't want a boss. Maybe you ask us why we're entrepreneurs, but I didn't want a boss. And then I assumed that people also don't want a boss. And so the worst part of the two parts that are problematic with bosses is decisions. Like the boss says, I don't want to call it that, I call it something else, and he's your boss, so there's nothing you can do. And assessments, like evaluation. So I do your evaluation, and because I'm your boss, I don't like you. I like him better, and so we really try hard to make the things as objective as possible and remove the power of the boss, basically. And the decision memo does exactly that. So it has a decision memo that, where there's a consensus and I don't agree, I'll still get out of the role, right? Yeah. Except if I feel so strongly that I say, I'm not going to let that go. It has happened like maybe twice.
Wow.
It happened.
Yeah, we get
very
outruled a lot.
Yeah, that's right. We removed our own power.
The interesting thing is so many companies have the problem of too many meetings. Actually, I'd say it's, if I think about the top 5 problems that are common, too many meetings is one of the top common problems that most companies have. But actually, in most cases, you probably don't need to have the meeting, which actually, this is a good representation. This is the drop down. Cool. Do we need to have a meeting about it? Like,
yeah, we're a remote company with no meetings.
Yeah.
With the meetings, because our core business is to book meetings. And with the meetings company, we have very few meetings. We don't do this. I had the developers, they had a daily stand-up. And I said, guys, do you really like that daily stand-up? Do you really like that? And there was different teams. And one team said, no, I hate it. So that team stopped. And the other team said, yeah, I like it. And the one team said, well, let's do that frequently. So now there's only one team that they no longer do daily. They do like twice a week. They decide what they do. Yeah, you're right. It's not helpful. Right? You're right. It's like the cancer of companies.
Yeah, 100%.
These meetings that 100%. Are useless and decisions that go around at the course.
People want to hear themselves speak. So
that's
they
right.
have another
Exactly.
meeting just to like tell you.
The smart one on the table.
Alina, you had mentioned that some of this stuff you've actually documented, like how this works. Have you shared that? Like, I know internally you have, but have you shared that with other founders? And
in the past 2 years, when I started taking this acting CMO role and I became from an introvert to an extrovert, I also discovered a passion for community, like a very strong passion for it. And I organize a lot of CEO events, a lot of CMO, CRO, CO. And in the process of creating these networks, I get asked a lot of questions. And I created also Notion docs for all the questions that I get asked more frequently, like how do we make decisions at Chili Piper? How do we create different levels for like seniority, or how do we go about our social media strategy? How do we build AI agents? What the internal process is? What kind of agents we built? So I started documenting all of these things in Notion docs, and I just have like shortcuts to them to share with the CEOs that I meet.
People probably love that. I mean, I know, right? Because everyone wants just, this is why I'm doing this podcast. It's basically just how do you shorten the learning curve? They can hear you say decision memo on stage or something, but then they don't really know how to go and make it work.
The details
they need
of
the
it.
details.
Yeah, that's one we actually published a while back. We do decision memos.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
We did. We produced a blog post, but to my knowledge, nobody adopted it. It's something so different than what people are used to.
No, it's becoming more and more popular because
people adopting it.
Yes, because some of our employees are leaving and they're going to other companies and they say, "Why don't you have a decision memo? How do you make decisions around here?" So it's becoming a pressure that they have. And the article that we published a long time ago was not very precise. So in the Notion doc, I went into the details. The beauty of it is that I started writing much faster because of this decision memo. So for me, like creating these Notion docs doesn't take much mind space. It's interesting what happened to my thumbs and my brain now that I became in that habit of documenting things.
I really want to publish these. I think that like this is what I think is missing actually from there's. I was having a conversation with a founder the other day, and he's trying to figure out how to do his first board deck for his venture investors. This guy probably spent 5 hours trying to figure out how to do a board, for his first Series A. There's 100 templates. If you just gave the person that template.
Yeah, we struggle to at the
You know what
beginning,
I mean? Like that's just, how much time would that save? How much time if they can read the decision memo thing? Oh, wow, this is like much better than what I do, and just take it and implement it. But otherwise people have to go look and find and recreate the wheel. And so anyway, we'll follow up on that because I would like to publish that. So you both have served basically pretty much every executive, kind of all the different functions, what do you think is Alina's superpower as you've seen kind of almost a decade now of all the basically every job. What do you think her superpower is?
Well, it's funny because you had asked me, and I said that the ability to connect and with especially with our target personas and build a community of followers. But then that's her superpower in her current position. But then I remember in the early days when she was in a different position building products, I would say that her superpower is her curiosity. So she would always look, like she said earlier, like she would ask people, but why do you do it this way? And why don't you do it that way? Right. And she's very creative also. So that curiosity is she's always looking for better ways to do things. Like when AI started, she immediately adopted it because she was curious what it does. We have a graveyard of devices in our house because she keeps buying the new device. Like we have the goggles from Meta, from Google, the glasses, you name it. We have the Ray-Ban from Facebook. We have the one from before where you say hello Google or whatever. She's always curious to find out what, and it works in tech. It works. You want to be curious. You want to explore, and that's very important to, especially when you head of products, right? To drive things. So that I think that was a superpower that was critical at the beginning.
So, Alina, you mentioned the community piece before, and you mentioned CEOs, but also sales leaders, CMOs, all of these different functions. What, where do you see the value from this community, right? Because it's a lot of work. I mean, having done it before, like community is, I think, amazing, but a huge amount of effort. Like, how do you leverage that community, especially customers? I'm talking now, not like the CEO community, but
it does take a lot of time, and I get personally involved. So I send directly the messages. I pick the places. So I'm very involved in it. I get a lot of joy personally out of it, and that's the main reason why I do it. I don't measure a pipeline impact from it, and the joy comes from the ability to fully, because as Nicolas said, I'm super curious, to fully understand what people are going through, what's really going on in their lives. And you could do that on a Zoom, maybe. You could do that in a Slack community, maybe. What I'm finding is that when people get together and there's no camera on, and there's no posture that we have to be these robots at work, they become a lot more open to sharing their challenges, their real challenges. And that's how I understand what would resonate, what the things that I'm building, why they would matter to them. So I get to be a better founder because I get to know the truth.
I love one of the things you said is you don't measure the pipeline. I think that one message, the CEOs I've interviewed so far who are the best at building community, they've all said actually that same thing, where it's not a pipeline driving activity. Of course it will in some way. It's going to give you a halo effect. People are going to come to you. But every CEO that I've talked to that's built a community, thousands and thousands of people, and the people who are like, it's like a religion, they never have said, I've asked them, and no one has ever said, oh, it drove this much of my pipeline. But what I find is a lot of venture investors ask, wait, that's expensive, or what, when it comes time to really look at the data, and they're like, what's happening with that? That's for community? How much revenue did you drive from that? And I think that's actually, I don't know what you feel. I assume you feel the same way. I think in today's world or going forward, I think community is the moat that cannot be AI-ified.
It's the new middle funnel. It's in the middle of the funnel, and you can't measure it.
I like that. Yeah. You can't, AI is not, I could raise $500 million tomorrow, go start a company, and I couldn't create the community that you have of revenue leaders. It would be impossible. Even with unlimited money, it would be impossible. I could vibe code a copycat product. That's not going to build community. Right. So I feel like that's a big thing that's going to come up in the next decade as people are building these tools so quickly and everything. Cool, but who's going to actually, how are you going to differentiate from the other tool?
It's really hard to do it well, because if you go with selfish reasons, whether it's pipeline or something different, people read that. Even if you don't say it, they can feel it, they can sense it. We have a third sense, I don't know. And if it's not a genuine community building in the sense of you wanting to give give back to the people around you, you can feel it. So it has to be a genuine curiosity and a genuine desire to help and a genuine presence there for the community as opposed to for yourself. And I think that's what makes the organic nature of it work better.
I like that. So now let's transition, since we want to do both directions here. Alina, what do you think Nicolas's superpower
Hopefully she
is?
finds something.
I'm super grateful that I have him by my side, because I don't think we would have managed to do anything without him. And one of the main reasons for that is that he has this intelligence around human driver. So he has this empathy to understand what would drive someone to do something, why we should hire a certain profile over the other one, and being able to create the right kind of culture system and decision systems and hiring systems, operation systems to make sure that we get to the right results. And it's like he's like a human glue with empathy. I don't know how to explain it differently.
But it's funny because I was talking to a founder and CEO who now has 1,200 employees, and we're having a drinks last week at the Soho House, and he's like, "I'm exhausted." I say, "Why are you exhausted?" Say, "All these people." And I think he said, "What about you?" I say, "Me, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love developing people. It doesn't drain me. It's the opposite. It energizes me. So seeing them grow, helping them, coaching them, promoting them, I just love it. So I think we tend to be good at what we love, right? Or maybe it's the other way around.
So in terms of the internal team, if I read that correctly, the internal team and the culture, that's coming from you.
Well, it's coming from both in that we're both visible, but for sure I pay a lot of attention and spend more time on it, yeah.
What is if you could just choose one attribute of people who join Chili Piper, what is the one attribute that you care about the most that they have?
For sure, it's resourcefulness, right? And there's a selection bias because people who want to work remotely tend to be more resourceful because they're okay working from home, working alone, it tends to be the people who are more resourceful who say, I'm not gonna go to an office. I'm cool on my own. And so that
how do you
as I said, there's a selection bias because they come to us. But it's been, I can't think of anybody who would let go because they were not doing enough work, like not driven enough. We've had to let go people for different reasons, but they were always resourceful. We also have a radar for it. We sense that people are doers, and we want doers. So that's for sure the number one thing we're looking for. And then our number one value at the company is help. So help the customer, help one another,
Community,
and help the community. So it's not a trait we're looking for, but it's a trait we try to develop in everybody. Say, if you're here, try to help. Actually, now we've got this great thing. That's a good one for you. It's called the ONA, the network activators, something like that. Organizational network activators. Impact assessment. I was saying earlier, we want to make it more objective. It's our people team that came up with that. I think it's brilliant. You ask everybody, is there somebody you go to for advice, right? Or somebody who helps you more than the others. And then you find that some people are like at the core, like a lot of people come to them for advice. And
everyone always says the same people.
The same people, right?
Yeah.
And you realize how much value these people are bringing and are critical that to the organization. It's fascinating. We just started that. It's a fascinating experiment.
We did that one time. We went around to the company and we asked people, who is like the person, our question was, who is the person that embodies our values the most at this company? And we asked every person in the entire company. We literally I went to every departmental meeting and had them write it down. And it was like, the company was 300 people and it was the same 11, not the same, but basically the same 11 people every time. And it was so, there was maybe 20 total, but there was this set that just every person, even if it was in a different department, and you realize there are these nodes, okay, let's a couple more questions. I want to transition to your backgrounds, but a couple more very important questions. So, what is the biggest challenge? We can start with Alina, and maybe this is the same for both of you. What is the biggest challenge that you've ever faced at Chili Piper, and how have you overcome that?
For me, it's very specific to my personality and how I was brought up. My mom made me believe, I thank her for that I can do anything. If the way she raised me is that if I want to be president, I'll be president. If I want to save world hunger, I can solve world hunger. So I have this delusion in my head that I can build a company that keeps everybody employed, everybody happy for the rest of their lives, and everybody has a job that they thrive and that they love. And in my delusion, I can build a company that has 8 billion people in it. So when we had to do layoffs, for me, it was unconceivable that would happen, because I just tried to find ways in which that I would, I don't know, sell my house and not have to fire anyone. I was crushed. When we had to do layoffs, I was crushed. And for like 2 months or so, I was in a state where I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I had to hospitalize myself. I just could not comprehend that what my mom said, that I'm capable of everything, was not true. I was not capable of keeping these people employed. With a lot of therapy, a lot of support from him, he said, look, you're limited, you're only human, you have a brain that has a certain capacity, and you're here for the others, the ones that are not getting let go. And if you abandon them, then we have nothing. Because I was ready to quit. I was ready to quit. So I'm still working in therapy on it, but on my delusion, thinking that I can keep 8 billion people happy. And it's a work in progress, but I feel that I'm starting to understand my limitations a lot better, and understand that when you're building these companies, you have a lot of constraints. A lot of constraints, and whatever you think going in, that you can be everything to everyone, and you can make all your customers happy and all your ecosystem and all your community, and understand that I will never be perfect.
Yeah, I think that having done too many layoffs in my career, starting the first one, I was probably 25 or something. I think it's like probably the worst days. It's like they stick with you. Like you I mean, they're the worst, especially if you care about the people and you care about, and everyone so well, and it's
soul crushing.
It's terrible, and I think that to the point of the people who are left, in some cases you literally have no choice, and that's the part that is hard, because even if you say I have no choice, people don't really care, that you have no choice. But in reality, the company may not exist. The customers may not get serviced anymore, unless you do it. And so that's a painful one. Is it the same for you, or?
No. That's when I experienced it a lot more in a more level-headed way. In these company meetings, I always said, we're not a family. We are a sports team, right? We don't, in a family, you can't fire your uncle, right? So you don't look through it. So we are, getting together with a goal, and that's a contract. So I felt that there was a contract, there was some constraint, and we try to help people as much as possible. And it's true what you said, that people don't care, right? They correctly,
they shouldn't.
That's right. They should take care of themselves, and they don't care that you want to save money or something. But we did our best to help people. I think we did it well. The feedback we received was that our ex-employees are very, very thankful. And kept a good relationship with us.
Yeah.
So now, for me, the challenge with the early days is when we were bootstrapped, and it's all cool to say, "Oh, we bootstrap." But at the time, it wasn't cool. Every morning, I'd wake up and check my phone, the Chase bank account, to see if somebody had paid, if somebody the money was there. It was very stressful. That hard part.
Did you bootstrap because you wanted to bootstrap, or because you had to bootstrap?
It's a good question. At the beginning, we wanted. because what Alina said, we wanted to make sure we focused. And then we said, okay, now we should raise money because we should scale. And at that time, VCs would not give us money. So at that time, we no longer wanted to bootstrap, and yet we had to. So there was a time, a month, something like 11 months after we started, where literally we had no money, and we were, I can even say the account was Square. Square had agreed to buy money. Alina closed the deal to buy our solution.
Yeah.
And we were waiting for the check, but they had no money in the bank. So at the time we had 3 employees. Wow. And I went to them and I said, listen, and we had already sold our house, our car, you name it. So I went to them and I said, listen, we have no money. It's the end of October. How do you feel if we gave you equity? And one of the guys says, that's okay. Yeah, you guys are so crazy, it may even work. So we gave them 50,000 shares. Because,
at that point,
right, we felt so bad. Here's 50,000 shares. And then we did a secondary a few years later at $12.60 a share. They had a $600,000 a month. Can you believe it? They had a $600 a month. And
they deserved it.
They deserved it. They thought we were crazy.
They believed in the
crazy.
They
believed in the crazy.
So there's a happy ending to that story, but the stress of checking the bank account in the morning, that's something I would not do again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where is Chili Piper in 3 years from today?
That's the part where it excites me the most. I finally found someone to replace me on my marketing.
I saw that post.
So I get back to the building where I thrive, and on the building front, it's because I felt the pain of marketing myself, and marketing is so freaking complicated. We're building everything that I've learned in the past 2 years back into the product and making the platform the best there is for B2B marketing teams.
Mm.
Yeah, so we see ourselves at the leading edge of using AI for go-to-market. We think we're in the right position. We have the brand, we have the connection, we have the understanding of the market. We had to finish. I think we haven't mentioned that, but we had a complete rewrite of our platform.
Mm. And I talked about that.
Yeah, it was a near-death experience because for the longest time, nothing was coming out and competition was coming after us. But now we finished. We have all things well-structured in microservices and in the right place. And so we can plug, this particular feature with an LLM to that job and then, integrate in our workflow. So we really think we have the foundation. So in 3 years, we see ourselves as leading that movement.
Mm. And we're going to be focused on what I told you, the middle of the funnel, the type of things that cannot be done, cannot be recreated by any other company. So we're going to focus on partners, ecosystem, community, all the hard things that are hard to do with the tools that are in existence right now. And I have a lot of excitement because with AI agents, there's so much that took me so much time to figure out. And now with AI agents, you can do right away. So all my knowledge is going to go into the platform. It's going to be, I'm very excited about it.
So when you talk about that, the partners and the community, you're saying to enable your customers
to do the same,
to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. So that's a pretty big expand. I mean, that's
it's a big project ahead of me.
Wow.
Ahead of us, yeah.
Yeah, I think we've never been
as excited about what we're building ever. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's running on the 10-year anniversary. I think people get tired. I think we're like, wow, let's go going. Now this whole thing with AI is so fascinating. Yesterday I was on a call with my team. We were the call where we decided what to call is it an intent or a strategy or that, and it came out of my mouth. I said, guys, you realize how lucky we are? There's this big thing happening called, conversational AI, and we get to build it. We get to integrate in our products and be part of it, be part of that movement. So
and you have the customers. I mean, that's the thing. You have the customers. That's the part. Again, I think there's a lot of cool AI stuff. It's just they don't have anyone to use it.
That's right. That's right.
So that's the benefit.
Yeah. And we have the trust from our customers because we've been
there over a decade. I mean, basically a decade.
Yeah. Serving them.
Okay. I want to transition to your backgrounds quickly. So maybe Alina, we'll start with you. Where are you from originally?
I was born in Romania, and I started working ever since I can remember. So my first job was when I was 8. Um, I didn't know that I had the entrepreneur spirit in me. I just figured that I'm in charge of supporting everybody around me ever since I can remember. Um, and I
What
had
was that job?
my first job was helping all my neighbors pay their bills in the flat. We had I don't know, like 16 apartments, and I would pay their electricity, their water consumption, their gas consumption. I would just take care of all of that for our building and any repairs that we had, like kind of like a concierge of the building.
At 8
Uh,
years old?
mm.
Okay.
Then I did the odd sales job. I dabbled in modeling, math tutoring, IT repairs, software debugging, all sorts of odd jobs. Eventually, I noticed that computer stuff would make me more money, and I got into computer science.
But where did the entrepreneurial spirit come? Just from inside of you? What did your parents do?
My parents are factory workers. I did not have. I was the first in my family to go to college. Um, I didn't have any entrepreneurs around me. I've never seen any, and I did not have only agriculture. Like, my grandparents had a little farm with chickens, and so I did not see that in real life. And it was early days where internet was not available to me, so I wouldn't get this thrill of excitement of opportunity. But I always dreamed of coming to US. I felt that there were more things happening. And when I came here in 2007, I decided to focus on building stuff, specifically mobile apps, because I was just curious. It was like the new thing, and I'm always curious about the new things. And the rest is history.
Wow. Your parents, they must be very proud.
That's a euphemism.
Yeah.
They're extremely proud.
I'm sure.
It
must be.
It should be.
Wow. And do you go back to Romania
A lot, yeah.
And you have team members there, right?
We have 4.
Okay.
4.
Wow. Okay. I hope my kids start paying people's bills and doing that stuff. So Nicolas, what about you?
So me, I grew up in Marseille, in the south of France. My parents, we were a family of 5 kids, put a lot of emphasis on education. So I really was driven to go to the right schools. But looking back, I had to see this entrepreneurship because I'd always go on adventures. Like when I was 14, I got on a moped. We took the boat and went to the Corsica to tour around the island. I do this crazy thing. I went hitchhiking. And one day I took 11 different cars to go to Brittany and other places. I just was driven to do things differently than the others. But I never thought I could do that for work. I had no example around me. I went to École Polytechnique where everybody was meant to become an engineer or a civil servant. And so I just thought I'd continue working and travel. That was my adventure. And to travel, I applied to business school. So I applied one time, they all rejected me. I applied the second time, they all rejected me. The third time, Stanford took me. So I showed up there and I had this weird plan that I wanted to go next to Asia, Hong Kong, which made no sense. But then something happened. My classmate, Steve Jobson, who is now a famous VC, invited Steve Jobs to come to talk to us in a beer and pizza session. And Steve Jobs was at the time running Next. And the joke was that he was going next to nowhere. And he sat on the floor and he started telling the story of how he was going to change the world of computing. And I looked at him, it looked like real. And I thought, that's what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be an entrepreneur. So I just focused on that. I did my summer job in a startup. And then as fate would have it, I met John Sculley, the very person who had fired Steve Jobs, and started a company with John. So we found some imaging technology and did... At the time, I called it Photoshop for Dummies. So it was a consumer version of Photoshop, like easy to use and stuff. Now it would be cooler to call it Instagram on PC. But it was successful. I did that thing. I did 6 million in revenues the first year, 12 million the second year. So we worked really well.
Then?
Yeah, back then. Yeah,
wow.
Real money. It was a crazy experience actually because John was close to hero status in Japan because Apple was so big. So when you run Apple, so when we finished our product, he said, let's do bundling deal with the big hardware manufacturers in Japan. So I went to on a trip with him, and we were received by every CEO of every top company, Canon, Fujitsu, like they would sit down like there was like he was a little entrepreneur having these big CEOs taking meetings with me. So then I realized that, just to continue the background, I realized that in San Francisco, I was the only one not doing internet, because now we're talking about 1998, and the internet has started. I have a million story about the internet and me, but I skipped them. So I sold my shares and I started an internet company, and I did an e-commerce platform to enable technology. I went from 0 to 65 employees in 11 months. I got an offer from CNET to buy me for $60 million. I had 72% of the company. Oh. So I was going to clear 42 million in 2000 now. The offer collapsed. The internet collapsed. The funding dried up. I went bankrupt. So that was startup number 2. Yes, I know. I'm that close to that money. Yeah. So then I moved to New York and I continued doing other companies, and that's where we're here now.
Wow. And where did you meet?
In one of the companies that he started.
That's right. Late 2005, I thought that it made absolute sense that software should have reviews. They were starting having Yelp reviews for restaurants, and that there should be reviews for software. So like the G2 of today at Paris 2006. And I started recruiting in Romania, and I started recruiting engineers, and then I said I need product managers. So one of the engineers said, "Oh, I have these classmates, maybe they'd be interested." I said, "Okay, send me a bunch of them. I'll interview them." And I'm sitting in a hotel at the table, and I'm interviewing one. They go, the next one, and then the next one doesn't show up. And there's a hot chick in the room, and I'm thinking, it's a shame that I have this interview, because I will go talk to her. And next thing, she looks at me. I say, "Are you my interviewees?" I say, "Yes, it's me." And that was Alina.
Wow.
That's right, exactly. So I interviewed her. I wrote on the resume, I wrote yes, no. For Alina, I wrote maybe. And in the end, it happened. So that's how we met.
Wow.
That's right.
What an amazing story.
Yeah.
You now have a family. So how is it to build a company and a family at the same time?
I feel so fortunate. Every time I wake up, I can't believe my luck, because most of the times when we go to work, we feel bad that we leave our family behind. And me, I don't have to do that. I bring my kids to work. My kids come to conferences. My kids are involved in what I do. He's involved in what I do. I just can't believe my luck.
And the kids, when you say you take them to conference, like you actually come with you and like walk around the conference floor?
Yeah. Well, they're very little right now. So they're 6 and 4. They don't really kind of comprehend what's going on. But they have a QR code. They get
wearing a QR code?
Yeah. The QR code says, my mom pays me $10 if you book a meeting with Chili Piper.
Does it work? I assume it works.
Yeah. So then they get $10, and I don't buy them any toys, so they have to figure it out how they can earn money, and that's a source of money for them. It's fun.
Wow.
And I must say, we've made it very so Alina she's as transparent with our kids as she's online, so they know what we do. Sunday afternoon, my 4-year-old comes to me and say, "Okay, Daddy, don't you have to go to work now?"
On Sunday.
I said, "That's the time you go." So yeah, you're right that I went to work because he wanted to play another game that's loud and he wanted me out of the way, right? So he sent me to work. And it's like a natural thing to do. They don't complain. They don't think it's strange.
I explained to them that for me, going to work is the same way as they play with Legos. For me, it's fun. So they get the same kind of joy from it, watching me. And it's very different when you feel like you're working because you have to, versus that you work because it's joyful and you see your parents that it's joyful, and you don't make it that you go to an office and thank God it's Friday, or thank God it's the end of the day. For me, it's like so much joy. I feel so fortunate. I wish like everyone could have the experience that I have.
You know, the thing with being remote is that our commute is 500 feet.
Right.
We have an apartment we do have an office. It's like across the street, so we don't waste time. So we see them. We home on time to see them. Plus, we decide our schedules mostly. Alina travels a lot and goes to a lot of conferences, but they say the same thing. They got used to it. Say, they go, where do you go? When do you come back? And
yeah, I think what you said there about, I say the same thing to my kids when they say, you know, I'm doing emails, I'm doing whatever, and they say, wow, you know, you're working late, and I say, yeah, but I enjoy it, you know, and I think, again, if they see that, then they see work in a different light, you know, and, you know, and as they get, I mean, I tell everyone, I take my kids to any company I work with, any, you know, and recently my younger one, who's 9 years old, I told him, oh, I'm working with this new company, and he said, how much equity? He literally asked me that, you know. And I started explaining it to him, and he said, "Do you think it's gonna be successful? You know, like, you know, did they raise any money?" He asked all these questions. My older one, my 11-year-old, came here with me last time here to the studio and watched, you know, as I was doing the recordings, and so I think if you can do that, you know, I grew up that way, so I'm biased to that, but I think that it's also, you know, this stage of a company, it's a lot, you know, to be building the company and be building, you know, and then growing that family. And if you don't intertwine them, it would be impossible. I think it would be impossible. Last question for both of you. So Nicolas, we'll start with you. What is knowing everything you know today, all the experiences you've had, if you could go back to the very beginning of your career before you started your first job ever, first company ever, what would be the one piece of advice you would give yourself?
I would say to dare to explore. As I explained in the early days, I followed the path that was there for me. I went to École Polytechnique, then I went to work for the company that was recommended. You know, I see you see kids, they go to work for Goldman Sachs because it's Goldman Sachs and thing. And it's a mistake I think they make. It's like you have to explore and value experience over the brand or what people are telling you to do. If I had explored, if I had talked to entrepreneurs, I would have started much earlier. I would have, you know, been more bold. I would have believed more instead of staying in the past. So that's the advice I'd give myself. Say, have more confidence in yourself. Go explore and do what you feel is right for you, not what the other people tell you.
It's funny that he gives this advice because I think that he's one of the bravest person I know. So I just can't imagine like going one level. On my end, I think that I presented that on one side I love, and I feel extremely fortunate that I have this life where I can do what I love, and with him by our side, and I can create my own adventure. And in addition, I don't want to do a poor job portraying what entrepreneurship really looks like, which is a long set of challenges. You always have things that push you to the limits, to the extremes, to what you think that you're capable of. Like the layoffs, for me, it was a very extreme shock to my body. There are a lot of challenges. Every day is a challenge. Every day is a hustle. And when you make those kind of decisions that could make or break the company, where something that you might not see could get you bankrupt, I wish from the beginning that I would have a stronger trust in my intuition, because you're always going to have to make decisions with imperfect data, constricted by time. You're always constricted by time. You don't have enough time. And I wish I could form a better system to trust my intuition more, to be able to move faster and make better decisions just based on that.
I like that. Well, I want to say thank you to both of you for doing this with me. Thank you for coming here and doing it in person. And I love this conversation. I love your story. And we've known each other actually for quite a while.
I've got to tell you something in conclusion, because you know I've been in your office trying to sell to you.
I know.
And you always push back. As fate would have it, yesterday I got a Slack message, Better Cloud.
Wow.
Became a customer.
Yes,
that's right. Isn't that crazy?
It was for floating apps. That was when we had our conversation.
That's right, at the beginning. The precursor. Yeah.
It's amazing to see what you've built and what you've done together. And so I look forward to seeing what's
What's
store
next?
the next thing. We'll do another one of these, in 5 years. So thank you both very
Thanks
much.
for having us.
Thank you.
I'm very grateful that you're doing this service to the community and to CEOs, to sharing everyone's stories. I think it's beautiful to see how much the channel has grown. I'm very happy to see it.
Thank you. That's a wrap for this week's episode of Not Another CEO Podcast. Thanks for joining. For show notes and more, please visit notanotherceopodcast.com. We'll see you next week.